Good afternoon, everyone. I love to share the stage with Brother Jay, who is more animated than I would be for the coming minutes or hours. We first would like to commend and honor the formation team of FMOA for responding to the needs of last formation. You remember we were occupying half of this place now, and some of us were already seated on the carpet. So masaya yung microtel kasi nalinis yung carpet that day. All right, no more. So we have extended through the arrangements made by the formation team of MOA, FMOA. At the same time, it was also because of the marketing team. That's why we have increased in number. But we also would like to commend the batch heads and the batches of the Love Life Retreat who also helped in the promotions and marketing. Okay, it's always good that we are able to extend this to multiply what we're doing here in Feast MOA with other feast presences. All right. This is our theme for today, revisiting my Damascus. And this is about the commitment to discipleship. Commitment is a big word. But we worked on this 2 formation sessions before. I don't know if you were there. That was 2 months ago when we worked on the calling. I would be flashing, all right, the slides once again for us to reconnect with that, because commitment is the conclusion of that series. Okay, so if you were there, you would remember this kind of discussion. All right, we were talking about the reasons why you are a feast servant. What brought you here? And we made time to ask those who were here then at the time. Kalahati pa lang noon. What brought you here? What brought you to the feast? Why are you now a feast servant? And there were many answers given. You remember this series for those who were here? Okay, for those who were not here, I'll go through this, walk you through this so that you get to know and relate your experience with this. What brought you here? One could be curiosity. I just want to know what they are doing there. How is it to be a feast servant? What's the feeling? What's in store for me? Right, it's all about curiosity. Here's another reason why. It was a matter of chance. I have a friend who is a feast servant, and so this friend invited me, a relative invited me. I happened to, you see the word happened to, attend the feast, and there was an announcement about the ministries, and I thought I could share my talents, my giftedness with the feast. Matter of chance. May kapatid yung chance. It's also another word. It's all about coincidence, all right? Coincidence is 2 incidents coming together, intersecting, right? So you are working this way or walking this way, and then another event comes in, and the meeting of that was a coincidence. I attended the feast, and when I came out, there was the kind of gallery of feast ministries asking for those who would want to sign up, and so I signed up. All right. So this is a kind of, it also happened that way. There's another reason why I am a feast servant. Kinaladkad ako dito, hinila ako dito, pinwersa ako, yan. Kamag-anak ko, kaibigan ko, kapatid ko, best friend ko, ayan. So napapasok na ako dito. Right. The last is, it's not about chance, it's not about coincidence. Nobody forced me. I decided to be here and serve. It was my choice. Okay, let us just see by the raising of hands how many resonate, connect with the items. All right, what brought you here? Why are you a feast servant if you're a feast servant? Why are you a feaster if you're not yet a feast servant? It is a matter of curiosity. Let me see. Curious lang talaga ako. All right? It was a matter of chance. Nagkataon lang. Coincidence. Coercion. All right. It was a matter of choice. All right. My choice. Nobody forced me, all right? It was not the meeting of events, but I decided. Right. Now, okay, fine. It was my choice. Problem is, storms come up, and I encountered difficulties along the way, and that makes me question my service, my dedication. How am I committed to this? And the storms can make me stop serving. Enough of it. So, lalo na kapag malakas-lakas yung bagyo. Ano yung mga bagyo? You notice what letter did the words begin? C. All right, the storms also begin with the letter C. By the way, this is not the main point. Right? It's just a review of 2 formation sessions ago. Big storms in our servanthood. This kind of storm. Cooling off. You were so fired up before, you were burning, your heart was burning. All of a sudden, you started to lose that zeal. Nanlalamig ka na, nanlalata ka na. Yung image na ginamit natin, before, you were offering the fresh grapes of your youth. Then after a year or so, you offer dried prunes. Sabi natin, mas maganda sa Tagalog, di ba? Dati nag-aalay ka ng sariwang ubas ng iyong kabataan. Ngayon, tuyot na pasas. Yan. What happened? Well, cooling off. It happens in relationships. It happens in the ministry. Here's another storm. Conflicts. Kidwaan, misunderstanding, all right? Unreconciled differences. Minsan nagiging irreconcilable. We belong to the same ministry. There's conflict. There's conflict between one ministry and another ministry. Or worse, one feast against another feast. So, stop na ako. Here's another conflict. Here's another storm. While conflicts work outside, this works inside. I compromise my service. So, for example, my service is every Sunday. It's every Sunday. The feast is on Sundays. But I accept other, invitations on a Sunday. We go for barkada session or bonding on Sunday. So I cannot serve anymore. I compromise my service. For me, this is the worst. When we live a life of contradiction. Am I blocking your view if I stand there? Right. Life of contradiction. Ito yung masakit sa isang servant sa parish. Pag nasabihan ng ganito, taong simbahan pa naman, ano? O kaya yung direct affront, taong simbahan ka pa naman. Now, how does it sound? How would you feel if you're told, feaster ka pa naman, feast servant ka pa naman? Masakit din masabihan, pari ka pa naman. Yan. That means there's some contradiction somewhere. I am not being true. My witnessing is inadequate. All right. Now, if these storms come, what happens now? We give up. Why? Because it was all a matter of curiosity, chance, coincidence, coercion. Yes, it was my choice, but I can also choose, to stop serving. I can also choose to leave the feast. I can also choose to join another community. That's my choice. Until we get to understand what this is all about. It's also a letter C. Why am I here? We said it is a matter of a calling. And we said last time, notice it's not just call. Call and calling are similar, but they are not the same. One is a noun, the other sounds like a verb. All right? More properly, you call it a verbal noun. You call it a gerund. What's the difference? Nouns are static. They are once and for all a given. It does not move. It's there. I was called by God 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that's why I'm here. No, it's a calling. What does it mean? I was called by God 5 years ago, and God is calling me now, and I believe God would also call me tomorrow. And in the next 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 years, because the call does not end. That ing gives that dynamicity, that progressive movement to the calling. So why am I here? It's a calling. If I was called, then somebody called me. And that's the reason. The reason is not something. The reason is someone. And it's the Lord. So if the Lord called me, what should be my answer? If He says, come and be my servant in the feast, what would be your answer? Yes, all right. He called you yesterday. Your answer was? He's calling you today. Your answer is? He will call you again tomorrow. Your answer will be? And the coming days of your life, He will still call you. Your answer will be? Parang nakulitan na yan, no? Yes, ano ba? Yes. Okay. All right. What do you call that yes, 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 that continuous yes? It also begins with the letter C. There you go. That's what we mean by commitment. All right? Commitment is your daily yes to the Lord. A never-ending giving of oneself. Last time we were saying, it's so easy to say commitment. Bakit ka nagsaserve? May commitment ako eh. Labas tayo. Sorry, may commitment na ako kay Lord eh. So I have to be here. What do you mean by commitment? You remember the 3 animals? What were the 3 animals? The first one, the rabbit, the chicken, and the pig. Okay, let's just go through this fast. The rabbit, the chicken, and the pig. And we were saying one of these is just a member of your bakuran. The rabbit receives from you, but the rabbit does not give back. It does not contribute anything to your life. That's the rabbit. Question is, do I have that attitude in me? Am I a rabbit in the feast? Well, I am a member of the feast. I have the shirt, I have the ID, and whenever there would be events, I would be there. If there is a ticket for free. So I get the perks of it. But ask me to serve, ay sorry na lang, I don't have time. Okay, that's the rabbit. What about this chicken? The chicken gives, but there is a limitation. I give only until this much. I serve only until this much. Ask me to serve on a Saturday, sorry na lang. Kasi ang pagkakaintindi ko, my service will be on a Sunday. I joined because I know it would be on a Sunday. Now you're asking me to serve on a Saturday? Sorry, but that cannot be. Limitations. All right. The pig. This is the animal that would give everything to you. It doesn't just give something. The chicken gives an egg. What does the pig give? If you have to get a part of the pig, you cannot do it slice by slice, bit by bit. You cannot chop a part of the pig on a daily basis. You have to kill the pig, and then you get the whole of the pig. And the pig says, I'm ready to do that because of my love for you. That's the pig. All right, so the question is, which of the 3 animals is a member? Which one is dedicated to you? Which one is committed to you? Easy to identify, right? Kasi progression siya. All right, the rabbit is just a member. The chicken is dedicated. And what about the pig? The pig is committed. What does it mean? What does commitment mean? In the light of the pig, commitment means, what do you give? Yourself. How much of yourself do you give? A quarter? Half? 3/4? The whole of your life. All right. So what is commitment? Commitment is altogether total self-giving. And I ended that session by saying, so what is the moral lesson of this story? Sa feast, magpakababoy tayo. Could you ask your seatmate, baboy ka na ba? The answer could be, baboy na, or nagpapakababoy pa lang. But I'm getting there, all right? I'm getting there. All right, so, and of course, you know, the reward of being a faithful steward is heaven. Wings would bring you to heaven. The very first pig that made it to heaven. Huwag nang kontrahin na mukha daw cow eh. Mahirap humanap ng image, okay? So, pasensya. All right. Fellow servants, the reason why we're here is one big C. It's not something. It's someone. It is Christ. Why am I serving? It's because of Him. The reason? John 21, verse 7. It is the Lord. All right. This is all about commitment now. Let's work on the continuation. Sumingit yung forgiveness na session. All right? Sa outline natin. So, it would be the items, elements of discipleship. We started with calling 2 sessions ago. Now it's commitment. Next would be consecration. The next would be commission, sending off. And that also ties up with the creed program. There's also that point on the commission. May question agad kanina, what happened in Damascus? Okay, we'll see what happened in Damascus. Let me begin with a story. You're seeing what? The rabbit again. Okay, so balik tayo sa rabbit. There's one story in the Gospel of John written by Cardinal Martini, and he talks about 2 monks in 3 AD. And one monk was asking his fellow monk, how come there are many monks who are leaving the monastery? And so that tells us even pala in the 3rd century AD, there was already that kind of phenomenon that people who enter the religious life leave. People who enter the monastic life leave. And the other monk answers that question by giving this story. And the story is this. One dog in the countryside spotted a rabbit. You know what the dog would do when it spots out a rabbit? Right. So the dog barked and started to give it a chase. And this dog started barking and yelping as it chased the rabbit. Moving around the village, catching the attention of the other dogs. And the other dogs, hearing the barking and yelping of this dog, started to join the chase. And soon enough, you have a line of dogs all running after one rabbit. All through the countryside, into the fields, and wherever the rabbit goes, the pack of dogs would follow. And then it happened. The dogs started to fall away one by one. They stopped running after the rabbit. They stopped joining the chase. Why? They grew tired. They grew exhausted. So they stopped running after the rabbit. And soon enough, there was just one dog that kept chasing the rabbit. What was that dog? It's that very first dog that saw the rabbit. This dog did not stop chasing the rabbit. Why? Simple reason. Because this dog is the only dog that saw the rabbit. All the other dogs just heard the barking and yelping of this dog, and so they joined the chase. Why did they stop? They did not see the rabbit. Why does this dog keep on chasing the rabbit? Because this dog saw the rabbit. And so the monk explains, that's how it is in monastic life. So many men decide to enter the monastery, but they grow tired and weary. They grow bored about the whole life inside, and so they stop following the Lord. Only those who have seen the rabbit persevere until the end. Only those who have seen the Lord persevere until the end. This was the declaration of Mary Magdalene. One Easter morn, she goes to the apostles and declares, I have seen the Lord. And that makes her a witness of the resurrection. That's John 20, verse 25. And verses after, the disciples, 10 of them, minus Judas, tells one disciple who was absent that day when Jesus showed himself to them. What did they tell Thomas? This was their declaration. We have seen the Lord. That's John 20, verse 25. And you remember what happens after? The Apostle Thomas says, nah. Kung Pinoy si Thomas, sabihin niya, we. Prove it. He wanted evidence. What was the evidence that he was looking for? The marks of the nails on his hands and the mark of the lance on his side. If I'm not able to put my finger into the holes in his hand and my hand into his side, I will not believe. That was a challenge to this statement. We have seen the Lord. The 10 did it, managed to see. Of course, Jesus obliged the following week. Maganda sa Tagalog yun. Pinatulan siya ni Lord. And so, Jesus now says to Thomas, come, you who doubt, put your finger into my hand and put your hand into my side. And what did Jesus say? Doubt no longer, but believe. And what did Thomas say? My Lord and my God. There you go. So Thomas can also say, I have seen the Lord. You know what fired up the 12 minus Judas, represented this time substituted by Matthias. And so they're still complete. Why did Christianity reach our shores, our time? Because there were 12 apostles, plus Mary Magdalene, and all the other disciples who have seen the Lord. All together, please. Only those who have seen the Lord persevere until the end. Why are we feast servants until now? Why haven't we given up? Because we have seen the Lord. Really, it's not a visible experience. No one of us could claim that, I think, that you really saw the Lord, but we see Him in different forms. We feel His presence. And that's the meaning of seeing. That's the meaning of believing. You remember the second reading of today's liturgy? Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen. To see the Lord, that's to believe. Even if I don't see Him, I believe. Why am I here? Why do I still serve Him? Because I have seen Him. And I will go on serving Him because I have seen the Lord. You know, it also happens in a relationship. It starts with the beautiful relationship between two people. And this develops into friendship. And this grows into love. And soon enough, they would be asking each other, how do I love thee? Elizabeth Browning, let me count the ways. And we know that there are 5 ways. We call them the 5 languages of love. So, ang ganda magtanungan, di ba? Anong language mo? Anong love language mo? And then I speak that language. I give you that. Okay. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. And this kind of love would lead into promises for each other. I promise to be there always for you. I promise to always stand by your side. I promise to be here now and forever. And this promise would develop into this kind of commitment. I do. Married people who are here, will you please raise your hand? And you remember that moment when you exchanged I do's before your beloved? For how long was that supposed to be? How many years? Forever ba yan? To have and to hold? For better, for worse? For richer, for poorer? In sickness and in health? Full stop. Hanggang doon na lang. Soon enough, hopefully not. There are many bills, as we are talking now, there are many bills waiting in the Congress and in the Senate, waiting for the right time that the bill becomes a law that grants, finally, divorce here in the country. The last country, other than Vatican, which is not a country, not to have, the last country to still believe in the sacrament of marriage, the sacredness, is the Philippines. Till death do us part. Can anyone really say forever? Shall we really add that word, I do forever? That is commitment. Years after, you call it fidelity. I love telling this story, especially pag may beloved. May kinasal, and I was there. I was so blessed to be part of the celebration of the 70th anniversary of a couple. 70th anniversary. Grabe, no? Ilang taon na kaya sila? Nasa 90s na sila. It was a beautiful celebration. When we were vesting up in the sacristy, we discovered that there were 3 bishops and 11 of us priests. Wow. And we were asking ourselves, ano to, sacred ordination? May mauordinan sa pagkapare. Okay, beautiful. And so we entered and we sat and we waited for the procession. Procession of the great-grandchildren and the grandchildren who are already grown-ups and the children who were the mga abay. Of course, yung bride hindi na nag-procession. 90 years old na, di ba? Palalakarin mo pa. Anong petsa na kaya magsisimula yung celebration? So she was already there with the husband. Ito na yung maganda, renewal of their vows. 70 years of marriage. The bishop was asking first the man, do you take this woman here present to be your lawfully wedded wife? And the man answered, I did. And we were, just like you, we were all laughing that there was an uproar in the church. Tama nga naman siya, no? You dare ask me if I take this woman as my wife? I have done that for the past 70 years. So tama siya, I did. Na nag-die down na yung laughter, sabi ng bishop, you have to answer using the correct formula. Strict na bishop. All right. So I ask you again, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? And the man says, I do. For the next 70 years. Di pa siya tapos. Nangarap pa ng centennial celebration. Grabe. Beautiful celebration. Yan yung historical. I usually add, ano na lang to? Dagdag na lang to na hindi talaga nangyari. Part 2. Here's a version that I add. Tapos na yung celebration, pagod na yung mag-asawa, of course. So they're now in the privacy of their room. The man is seated on his favorite couch, watching his wife. What was the wife doing? Fixing the bed, readying it for their night's rest. Grabe, overwhelmed talaga yung husband because his wife has been doing it for the past 70 years. And until now, kahit na mabagal na siya kumilos, hirap na siya, fix pa rin siya ng bed. Ito na, sabi ng husband. Sabi niya, "Han, I'm proud of you." Feel na feel niya. Hindi siya pinansin ng wife. Hindi narinig. As simple as that, alright? So napikon tong husband, sabi, "Psst, uy, may sinabi ako sa'yo." And then the wife says, "Ay, sorry, hindi kita narinig. Pakiulit." Alright, so the man says, again, mastering that feeling, "Han, I'm proud of you." Yan. Sabi ng wife, "Alam mo namang mahina na pandinig ko. Huwag kang pabulong-bulong dyan. Lakas-lakasan mo." Third time, sabi ng husband, "Sabi ko, Han, I'm proud of you." Yan. Sabi ng wife, "Narinig ko yung first two words. Humina yung last eh. May palambing-lambing. Lakasan mo na kasi." Sabi ng wife. And the man says now, "Sabi ko, Han, I'm proud of you, okay?" May diin din pati. Okay. And then the wife says, yun lang pala. Alam mo, ako rin naman, I'm tired of you." After so and so years of married life, what is our statement to our beloved? I'm proud of you, or I'm tired of you? What is our statement after years of service as feast servants or feasters? I'm blessed to be here, or I'm tired of it all. Sawa na ako. Nakakalungkot, this also happens in covenanted communities. It also happens in parish-mandated organizations. You're familiar with the PREX, Parish Renewal Experience? Okay, how fired up everyone is right after the PREX. And they are helped to find where they can be part of the ministries. And after some time, wala na. You remember the Cursillo movement? There was that peak of the Cursillo movement. Sobrang daming conversion na nangyayari. Pero yun, after some time, medyo nanghina ang Cursillo. It happens in communities. It can also happen in the feast. What happened to my commitment? Why am I growing tired and weary? Why am I getting bored? Only those who have seen the Lord persevere until the end. If I have not seen Him, I will stop serving. Just like true love is not just about feeling. True love is a decision. The feelings may be gone. After years and years of being together, you don't feel anymore yung tinatawag na init ng unang pag-ibig. But still, you decide to love this person. True love is a decision. The feelings may wane. The feelings may be gone. But you can still decide, I still love you in spite of it all. I still love to serve in spite of it all. After all, it's not about something. It's about someone. It's about the Lord. This is the secret to true love. It's all about giving and forgiving. What do I give? I don't just give anything. I give myself. And what I can also give is my forgiveness. Can husband and wife hurt each other? Can they hurt each other? Yes. Only once? Many times. Why do they endure? Why do they go on living together? Tiyaga na lang? No. Because the couple have learned to forgive. I love to say this. Marriages last not only because husband and wife love each other, but because husband and wife forgive each other. And that's also true in communities, in families like the Feast family. This is all about love, and it's all about decision. It's not about feeling. The feelings may be gone. Hindi ko na ganong feel yung nararamdaman ko dati, but still I decide to serve. And that's my commitment. It happened with a person who was on the way to Damascus. Paul. He had what is called the peak experience. You can also call it turning point. You can also call it defining moment. Ganda, no? When I joined the feast, that was a peak experience. I will never forget that day. Beautiful. Peak experience. It towers above all the rest of the experiences. If I'm to choose one event in 2018, I can pinpoint this. When I started to join the feast, something like that. That was a peak experience. What is a turning point? After that event, I was never the same again. There was so much change in me. There was a before and there was an after. And what's in the middle of that before and after? That event. You call it a turning point. And that moment changed me. It redefined me. Mothers who are here would be able to relate with this. The moment you became a mother, that redefined you. Correct? Even the fathers, nung naging tatay ka na, nag-iba ka na. Your baby redefined you. I am now a father. I am now a mother. Can we also say this of the feast? This redefined me. Now I'm a feaster. I was not a feaster before, but this changed my life. It happened also with one person. The name is Saul. He was called Saul before. And this was the experience of Saul. Experience on the road to Damascus. This is his image. You have Saul always carrying the sword. And you call it the Bible, the Word of God. Okay? You identify Saul by that. When you see a sword, that would be Saul. Unless it's already placed there, Paul. The Saul, the Paul in chains. Okay, this is associated with what we celebrate every year as the conversion of St. Paul. What happened then? Road to Damascus, that was a peak experience for him. That was a turning point. That was a defining moment. You see, his name changed from Saul to Paul. A change of name also means a change of mission. Abraham was called Abram. Then he was called Abraham. Simon was called Simon. He met Jesus. He was named Peter. You don't find the story in the letters of St. Paul, but you find the story of the road to Damascus in the second book of Luke. What is the second book of Luke? The first is the Gospel, the third Gospel. The second book is Acts. Who wrote Acts? It's St. Luke. And you find the story of the conversion of St. Paul in Acts 9, 1 to 9, Acts 22, 3 to 11, Acts 26, 11 to 18. Note, it's not just one account. You have three accounts. This is the style of biblical writers if they want to emphasize a point or a story. When Jesus wants to emphasize something, what does he say? Amen, I say to you. If he wants a double emphasis, he says, Amen, amen, I say to you. Second reading of today. How many times did you hear, by faith, Abraham left his native land? By faith, He journeyed towards an unknown land. By faith, he believed in the promise of God. By faith, he offered Isaac. How many times? 4 times. Emphasis. There are 3 accounts in the same book. What does it mean? Luke is telling us this is an important event. What do you call an important event in the life of Saul? You call it? Yung finlash natin kanina? The highest experience? The peak experience. He changed because of this. Turning point. And he was never the same again. He had a new name. Defining moment. Right? You see him riding a horse here. Right? Flash ko lang uli ha. For us to appreciate. This is an icon. It belongs to the Greek Orthodox Church. It comes from there. This is a picture on the stained glass window. Usually you find it in churches. This is another stained glass window picture of Saul becoming Paul. This is the Western picture, portrait of St. Paul. Is he identified again with the sword and the book? If it's Peter, what would identify him? What is he holding? The key. Not the rooster, huh? The key. Ibang simbahan yon. Yung pag-rooster ang hawak, may Kristo din doon. Alright. So Peter is holding the key, Paul is holding the sword. Alright. What happened then? What happened on the road to Damascus? In one sentence, Saul met Jesus. Why was he going to Damascus? Saul was a Pharisee. He was a zealous follower of the law. Which law is it? The law of Moses. And he could not accept the fact that there are now believers in this Jesus of Nazareth who suffered so much and was put to death and is believed to have risen from the dead. And they now call themselves Christians. So he started persecuting the followers of the new way. They call it the way of Jesus. Why was he on the road to Damascus? What he did in Jerusalem, now he would do in Damascus. And what is that? To have all the Christians arrested and to be put to death. It already happened with one first follower of Jesus. The name is Stephen. It was not upon the orders of Saul, but Saul was there as a witness to the stoning of Saint Stephen, whose feast we celebrate every December 26. Galing? Those who stoned Stephen to death piled their cloaks at the feet of Saul. What does that mean? Saul was there as a witness. May basbas ni Saul yung pagpatay kay Stephen. So Saul was on a mission. Whether he was riding a horse or walking, as what we saw, we don't know. We're not sure. Was he riding a carriage? We don't know. Maybe he was walking. Maybe he was riding a horse. But the sure thing is, he met Jesus on the way. Did he see Jesus face to face? The 3 accounts in the book of Acts would say he saw a bright light. And then he heard a voice. And what was the voice? It's Old English. So you have the saith, speaketh, the th ending of the verb. What did Jesus say? Jesus calls him by name, Saul, Saul. And the question, why are you persecuting me? Who was Saul persecuting? He was persecuting the Christians. And the question of Jesus was, why are you persecuting me? What's going on here? Jesus is saying this, you persecute my followers, you persecute me. What you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do unto me. You are persecuting me. Why? Saul did not know him. And so Saul asked, who are you, sir? Who are you, Lord? Lord here does not mean he recognizes Jesus as Lord. It's a title, an honor, title of honor. Who are you, sir? And Jesus answers by identifying himself. I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. He repeats the word. That is important in the book of Acts. I am Jesus. For us to be sure that it was Jesus who confronted him along the way to Damascus, and not an angel, not any other prophet. It was Jesus. I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. Question of Saul, what do you want me to do? And then Jesus tells another prophet in Damascus, what's his name? Ananias, about what's going on. Jesus already tells Ananias of his plans. You're going to meet Saul. The name already terrifies him. Saul has made a reputation as persecutor. So Ananias says, I've heard so much about this guy, this man. And he has put to death so many Christians in Jerusalem. And that means to say he's going to meet the persecutor. That means sure death for him. What did Jesus say? I have chosen him to be the apostle to the Gentiles. What happened on the road to Damascus? Jesus captured Saul. He wanted to arrest all the Christians. He was arrested by Jesus. That was a peak experience, unequaled. That was a turning point. As a follower of the law, he now follows a different calling. He becomes a disciple of the Lord. A new mission would require a new name. And so he gets to be called Paul. That was a defining moment for him. The persecutor of the Christians now becomes the apostle to the Gentiles. And many of the books in the New Testament, we owe it to this man. In fact, when we say the two prominent figures of the early church, who were they? One who carries the key, Peter, and one who carries the sword, Paul. Peter and Paul, the two pillars of the church. Why was Paul carrying the sword? Sign of persecution. So what's so important about Damascus? This was the moment of discipleship. If Saul would write in his diary or journal, if there was Facebook in his time, he would have posted. He would take a picture of that road to Damascus and say, it all happened here at this time. This was the moment when I saw the Lord. Why did Saul persevere until the end? Why did Paul persevere until the end? Because he has seen the Lord. Only those who have seen the Lord persevere until the end. Now, what happened really here when he met Jesus? You call it conversion of St. Paul. Why do you call it conversion of St. Paul? There was a conversion from being a sinner to being a saint? No. Was it a conversion from a life of immorality to a life of holiness? No. Paul was a righteous person. He was a zealous follower of the law. He was following the law of Moses. In fact, because of his love for the law, he was persecuting those whom he thought were blasphemers because they believed in Jesus, who was a blasphemer. Why so? Because he believed that there's only one God, monotheism of the Judaism, the religion of the Jews. There's only one God. What did God say? The very first commandment, I am the Lord your God. You shall not have any strange gods besides me. And then you have Jesus claiming that he is the Son of God. That's a blasphemy. He's a blasphemer. And all the followers of this blasphemer must be put to death. That's all. So what kind of conversion was that? You call it altogether, please? Okay. If you pronounce it in the original Greek, it would have to be metanoia. Could you say it again, please? Alright, wala naman nagdudugo yung ilong. All right, metanoia. All right, you call it, you pronounce it also as, we also pronounce it as metanoia, no? English version. Let's say the metanoia. What is the meaning of a metanoia? What is this image? It's a butterfly. You know what happens to a butterfly? It started out as a lowly caterpillar. And then what a change, a transformation. That's a metanoia. All right. The real sense, original sense of metanoia is this. You see the first 4 letters? Meta. Meta means after, beyond. All right. Metamorphosis. Morph is form, after the form. Okay. Metaphysics. You've heard of that word? After physics. Okay, what is noia? N-O-I-A. Nous. Nous is mind. What do you mean by metanoia? It's after the mind, beyond the mind. It's a change of mind. It's a change of perspective. Palit ng pananaw, palit ng paningin. Palit ng paniniwala. What was that about? There were 2 prejudices that were corrected. What were the prejudices of Paul? Altogether, please. 1, the ethnic superiority of the Jewish people. This was the belief of Saul, along with all the other Jews. The Jews, the people of Israel, are the chosen people, the chosen race. We are the best among the rest, the cream of the crop. And so you have the ethnic superiority of the Jewish people. Salvation is only for the Jews. That was a prejudice, a prejudgment. We all have our biases. We all have our mental constructs. We all have our frameworks. Right? And Saul believed that only the Jews would be saved. And that was changed. Now he gets to know salvation is also for the Gentiles, for the non-Jews. That's why he becomes an apostle to the Gentiles. Second prejudice altogether, the common Jewish expectation of the promised Messiah as a political liberator. God promised a Messiah. The Messiah is the Christ, the anointed, the one who would deliver the people of Israel. And they thought that somebody would come to deliver them from the oppression of Rome. And that would be a political liberator. And they were disappointed to see Jesus. He's not the Messiah. Because look at him. He is a loser. He died on the cross. How can a liberator die? A liberator is supposed to live and conquer Rome. Jesus was a liberator. Liberator from what? Liberator from sin. That's the Messiah. One who would liberate us from the chains of the slavery of sin. Saul got to understand that. So what was the change of mind in Saul? Kala niya ang maliligtas lang ang mga Israelita, ang mga Hudyo. At ang kala niya ang Mesiyas ay ang isang taong magbibigay sa kanila ng kaligtasan, kalayaan sa pagkakaalipin sa Roma. These were changed because of his encounter with Jesus. More than anything else, what is the metanoia of Saul all about? All together, please. This was the transformation in Saul. What does it mean by this? Openness to the mystery. He believed that there's only one God. Now there is a revelation. God sent his Son, the second person. And years after, Jesus would send the Holy Spirit. So there are three persons in the one God. How many of us understand that? There are three persons in the one God. Can we explain that? If there is one God, how many persons should there be? Logically, one. If there are three persons, how many gods should there be? Three. All right, that's logic. Now, how do you explain that? There's one God, and yet there are three persons in the one God. How do you explain that? How do you explain what God says that God became man? You call it the incarnation. The Word became flesh. How can God become man? How do you explain that? How do you explain a man who suffers and is put to death and rises again? How do you explain that? We cannot explain it. It's all called a mystery. And Paul becomes open to the mystery. He had his life controlled. He was in charge of his life. He was following his own agenda. He had the plan. Persecute all the Christians for love of the law. He meets Jesus. And he was never the same again. Where did it happen? On the road to Damascus. Peak experience, turning point, defining moment. Now, Saul, called Paul, learns to open himself up to the mystery. I am not the one in charge. In fact, he would say, I live, letter to the Galatians, I live, no longer I, but Christ lives in me. This is what discipleship is all about. This is what commitment is all about. When we let go of our frame of mind, our way of believing in things, our way of thinking, our way of seeing things, and I give you a beautiful word, we surrender. We surrender to God. Saul learned to surrender to Jesus, and he was never the same again. He met Jesus on the way. That was a revelation. You have another big word here. Theophania. All right, one more time. Okay, you recognize the first letters, theo. Theos is Greek for God. Deus in Latin. Diyos, D-I-O-S in Spanish. And Diyos in Tagalog. So Theos is God. What is phania? Phanein is to manifest, to show. You remember any word that ends with P-H-A-N-Y? We celebrate it after the solemnity of the Holy Family and after the solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God. Epiphany. Okay. If it's God manifesting himself, you call it theophany. Jesus manifested himself to Saul, and Saul was never the same again. Beautiful question for us. We are disciples of the Lord. We strive to be faithful to him. We want to be committed to the Lord. How can we persevere until the end? We can persevere if we have seen him. If we haven't seen him, then we will not last until the end. And so we can ask for that kind of theophany. Lord, I want to see. Look at what happened to Paul, to Saul. He was blinded by the light. And then he received again his sight. He recovered his sight. That was a change of vision. Nag-iba ang pananaw. He had to be blinded so that he would really see. He had to fall to the ground so that he could rise again. This is what you call conversion. At one point in our lives, we were there in the world. We were enjoying the security and safety and all the promises of the world. And then we met him. We met Jesus. And we realized that the world does not offer us anything that could last until the end. We got to realize that it's only in Jesus that we would find the real meaning and purpose in life. And so we surrendered to him. We decided to follow him. For how long? If we have seen him, then we would persevere until the end. But it happened at that moment when we met him. When was that moment? Question for each one of us is, what is my Damascus experience? If I'm going to trace back my life, when did it all start? When did I start committing myself to Jesus? When did it become so personal to me? I can point out a historical event. And that means to say a place and a time. It all happened there in that place, and it all happened there at that time. When was that? What is my Damascus experience? I may have forgotten that. When we forget, we become cold. When we forget, we turn our backs and walk away. When we remember, we burn on once again. When we remember, we are fired up by our experience. Paul keeps on going back in his mind to that Damascus experience so that he would be fired up again. We need to remember. We need to revisit our own Damascus experience in order to say yes continually to him. What happened in my Damascus experience? I met Jesus. That's an experience that towers above all other experiences. That was my peak experience. I was never the same again after that. That was my turning point. And that redefined me. That was my defining moment. This is beautiful. I got to see this in the Facebook page of Feast MOA. And I love how it was put. Jesus takes center stage. It's a play on the center stage. Where is the Feast MOA happening? Center stage. Galing ano? Jesus takes over. He takes the center stage. Of course, we have the picture of our brother, of our feast builder, Brother Didoy. But he would always say, it's not about me, it's about Jesus. I love it when Brother Didoy says that. The heart of the feast is the Eucharist. It's all about Jesus. Now, if you would allow me to share an experience of a priest, a brother priest of mine, he was so skeptical about the feast before, as many of us priests were and are until now. Skeptical in the sense that we don't know what's going on in the feast. And this priest shares with me, he says, you know, when I was invited to celebrate Mass, and one Mass after the other in the feast, and he says it was way back then in the Star City. There was a feast in Star City before the Feast MOA went to PICC, and from PICC came here. All right, he was celebrating Masses in Star City. And they also moved from time to time to Aliw Theater, right? Okay, so I'm talking about historical things. And then he would tell me, you know, when I celebrate the Mass, I know it's a Mass, so I have to celebrate it. I'm a priest, he says. And so I celebrate it as a priest would celebrate. But I feel bad deep inside. As I talk to the people seated in that hall, in that cinema, you know what is in his mind? These people should not be here. These people should be in their parishes. They are out of place here. This is not a parish. And they're making another church here. And then he says, the feast is taking the people away from the parishes. And that's bad. The feast is disorienting people from where they're supposed to be instead of leading them back home, and the parish is their home. The feast is coming up with new parishes. And this is bad. But whenever he would be asked to celebrate Mass, he would still celebrate Mass. Because it's a Mass. Yun nga lang, he feels bad to celebrate it with those who are lost. Kumbaga. And then it happened. You have a date here. 8/11/2018. Which is a year ago. A year ago. What happened? This priest who I was talking about was invited to preach in the Love Life retreat. I don't know what batch was that. I wasn't able to get it from him. All right, he was there. Okay lang, because he was asked to preach, and so he preached. And the following day, that was the 10th, the following day was the 11th, he was asked to celebrate Mass. He celebrated Mass for them, right? And he celebrated it in a different way. He removed all the structures. No altar, no tables. He mounted an improvised altar, and he asked all the participants of the Love Life to sit on the floor. He was also seated on the floor. Okay? For them to feel, around the altar, for them to feel it's their Mass, it's not only his Mass. And so he celebrated the Mass. You know what happened according to him? He allowed them to experience something different by giving them the body of Jesus ahead of time, before communion. He distributed the body of Jesus while they were singing the Lamb of God. And they were holding on to the body of Jesus in their hands. And he asked them this, invited them, you're holding Jesus in your hands. It's not just a piece of bread, it's Jesus. And you can see him with your eyes of faith. Talk to him. Listen to him. Cherish this intimate encounter with Jesus. And they would only receive Jesus after they have answered with, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you under my roof, but only say the word, and my soul will be healed. And that's the time they take Jesus. And this was his testimony. He was sharing it. As he was already doing the cleansing after his communion, you know, he could hear sobbing around him. And when he looked at the young people, Love Life retreatants, they were crying. Crying for what? Why were they moved? First time for them to hold Jesus in their hands. It was so touching a moment. And he felt how they felt. He was so moved by the response of the young people. And then it hit him so hard. 3 words. And he believed it was coming from Jesus. The words were, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. He has just fed them with Jesus. And now the words of Jesus, feed my sheep. And that's in the context of his retreat, he tells me. Before that time, what month was that? August. He had this retreat in June. And in the retreat that he attended with all the other priests with him, there was a preacher, a priest also from another country. And this priest was asking his fellow priest, I'd like you to meditate on the Gospel of John, chapter 10, which is the Good Shepherd account. And he was asking them to reflect on the lines, the Good Shepherd knows his sheep. And Jesus says, I am the Good Shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. That was the passage. And he was sharing how come his eyes and heart were moving towards another passage? Not that passage, but passages below, verses below. And the verse reads, I have other sheep that do not belong to the fold. I must lead them too, so that in the end, there will be just one flock, one shepherd. He could not understand why the Lord was leading him to that passage when, in fact, the preacher was asking them, reflect on, I know my sheep and mine know me. And it struck him so hard here. Last year, now he understood what was that all about. I have other sheep. You know, he's always been a formator of seminarians. His life was a life of formation, series of formation. He was teaching philosophy, he was teaching theology. He was living with those who would become priests. And he met the Lord. And the Lord was saying, I have other sheep that do not belong to the fold. You must lead them too. And in that Love Life retreat, he understood, because there was another message, feed my sheep. And water was over the dam at that point. He was so overwhelmed by that. Yan. Nahawa siya dun sa mga retreatants. Nagbaha din dun sa area na yan. As if that were not enough, that was August 11. A month after, September 9, he was invited to give a formation session to one feast. And they had it in 2 MOA. And just when he was preparing to give his formation, the servant who was in charge of discipleship approached him and he was told, Brother Dito would like to talk to you. And Brother Dito tells this priest, Father, we are thinking beyond this formation session, how we would love that you give the feast servants of FMOA a series of formations. But more than that, how we would love to have you as our formator. And this priest, sagot niya kay Brother Didoy, so wala si Brother Didoy dito para ma-verify, ma-validate. But Pat is here and she would validate this. The three were talking, not here, to Ecom. And nung sabi ni Brother Didoy, could you be our formator? Sabi nung pare, so na-desisyon na buhay ko. Kasi hinahain sa kanya, nakalatag na yung ganon. So of course, jokingly he said that. You know the answer of Brother Didoy to him? O di ba, Father, pagkatapos nung, alam mo yung hearty laughter ni Brother Didoy, yung hagalpak ng tawa, okay, he enjoyed that nagdesisyon na ng buhay. And then Brother Didoy just bursts out, o di ba, Father, feed my sheep. Where did that come from? And how did Brother Didoy know the private conversation that was going on between Jesus and that priest? What was the response of that priest? How could he say no? It's Jesus who has captured him. This is a transformation. And this priest now understands the feast is not stealing parishioners from the parishes. In fact, the feast is doing the church a big favor because the feast is reaching out to those Christians, Catholics, who are not reached by the parishes. These people who come to the feast are those who don't feel like going to the parishes, or those who don't anymore want to go to the parish, or if there was no feast, they would not go anywhere or anyway. We're talking about new evangelization. You know what's going on? How this priest desired to also have pastoral ministry. He has always been with seminarians. Yung mga magpapare. And God is giving him the chance to do pastoral ministry to other sheep. Feed my sheep. New evangelization is reaching out to those who are in the peripheries of the church. Yung mga nasa laylayan ng simbahan. If you ask this priest now, sino yung other sheep that do not belong to the fold? He would not say it's the feast, because the feast is no longer other sheep. Because he would say, the feast is my sheep. You have to believe me when I say all these things. Because these things are my Damascus experience. Turning point, peak experience, defining moment. I have always been called formator of seminarians, teacher of philosophy, theology, scholastic. Lagi na lang clerics. And how I love to hear Jello, that's why I said a while ago, ganda, no? Our co-servant of the feast. Why am I saying this? To feel good about it? Yes, that's true. I feel good about it. Why am I telling you this? To be proud about it? What did St. Paul say? What have we that we have not received? And if we have received it, why boast about it? No. Why am I talking about this? Because I want to remember. Because I want to revisit my Damascus experience. Because I tell you, as I'm giving the formation right now, this is no coincidence. This is 1 year after. This is 1 year after. And now here, we're having this as already a part. Huh? Blessed be God. That's my testimony of my Damascus experience. My dear brothers and sisters, this is all about remembering. When we forget, we cool off. When we forget, we turn our backs and walk away. We are by nature forgetful. Likas tayo makakalimutin, di ba? What am I saying? A joke lang. Okay. You see this? Remembering. When you say member, you break it into parts. You dissect it. Okay? When you say you put it all together. To remember is to put the pieces all together again. To remember is to see the whole picture from beginning to end and identify what was that moment when there was the transformation, the turning point, the peak experience, the defining moment. Lessons for life from our Pope Francis. What do we do when we look back into the past? We call it we remember. And when we remember the past, this is what we do. All together, please. We remember the past with gratitude. All right. Remember the past with gratitude. Every time we look back, every time we revisit our Damascus, then we are grateful to the Lord. Lord, thank you for that Love Life retreat. Lord, thank you for that talk with Brother Didoy. Lord, thank you for the 8 formations that has happened. That gives me meaning to my priesthood. Eto pa. Let me say it na, ha? This is not to advertise, but this is again to claim what God has done to my life. You know what would happen on December 8th? It's a solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. December 8, 2019. Beautiful date. 25 years ago, That was December 8, 1994. I was ordained a priest. I received a beautiful gift from the Lord. That's the gift of sacred ordination. You know what has happened? Just before I celebrate the 25th anniversary of my being called to be a priest, the feast comes in. Humabol pa, no? It did not happen on the 26th year. It happened within the first 25 years. What is this all about? Peak experience. Turning point. Defining moment. I narrate it to you because I want to remember my past with gratitude. I'm grateful to the Lord. And so should we. That's what we do with our past. What do we do with our present? This is here and now. What do we do with our present? Pope Francis says, all together, live the present with passion. That's how it is. Don't just live the present as if it's just an ordinary day. No, it's to be lived with passion. To be passionate about it. Anong sigaw ng Gilas Pilipinas? Yun eh, di ba? Puso. Live it with the heart. Do everything from the heart. Live it passionately. If you're going to read as a lector or commentator, then do it with passion. Choir members, if you're going to sing, then sing with passion. After all, you're doing it for the Lord. If you're interceding for humanity, then do it with passion. Whatever we do, do it with passion. Production team, how do we do it? Do it with passion. Look at Brother Jay. He does it with passion. Grabe, di ba? So passionately. He does it with so much heart. One of my favorite ministries in the feast. Because even if they are challenged, you see how they do it with the heart. Even if they don't have other powers that we have, they have the heart. And so they do it with so much passion. That's the spirit. Remember the past with gratitude. Live the present with passion. What do we do with the future? What do we do with the future? Yung makahula, may libreng pizza. Courtesy of Brother Pong. You know that Brother Pong is celebrating his birthday this month? Where's Brother Pong? Bawing-bawi, ano? Okay, what do we do with the future? Beautiful words of Pope Francis. What do we do and how do we do it? Remember the past with gratitude. Live the present with passion. Beautiful word. Embrace the future with hope. Grabe. You don't just confront it. No. You don't just face it. Embrace it. What do you mean by embrace? Accept it with hope. There's so much hope. Now, every hope is based on faith. You cannot have hope without faith. In fact, that's what we have in the second reading, book of the letter to the Hebrews. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for. Hope is always faith-based. And so what does that tell us? This is our prayer. Lord, I have my faith, but I ask you now, increase my faith. This is our prayer. Lord, we believe in you, but we ask you, increase our faith. Lord, pwedeng dagdagan mo pa, palalimin mo pa, patatagin mo pa, payabungin mo pa. After all, you deserve it, Lord. All right. Slogans for this formation. Every time we think of what God has done to us, we are moved to be grateful. Remember the past with gratitude. All together, please. The more we think, the more we think. We forget to say thank you when we forget to think. The more we think about what God has done to us, the more we are moved to be grateful. Whenever we remember, grabe yung ginawa ni Lord sa akin, then we say, thank you, Lord. Pag nakalimot tayo, hindi na tayo makapagpasalamat. Mothers would say that to their children. When their children would receive something from a friend, a relative, and the child would not say anything kasi lost in the gift, sabihin ni Mommy, oh, what do you say? Pinaprompt ni Mommy, di ba? Alright. Tapos hindi pa rin sumasagot yung bata, lost pa rin doon sa gift. And then Mommy would say thank you. And the child would say thank you. The more we think, the more we thank. Let's not forget, my dear friends, let's always remember. And then we become always grateful. And the second, all together, please. The more we remember, the more we surrender. Saul would always go back to his Damascus experience so that all the more he surrenders to the Lord. You are in charge, Lord. I surrender to you. I don't understand what's going on in my life. I have so many whys. Why is this happening? Lord, why did you allow this to happen? Why are you not giving me this gift? Why are you depriving me of this blessing? I have asked for this for so many times, and I still haven't received it. Why, Lord? I seem not to like what is being asked of me. I seem not to find meaning in what I'm doing now. What do? Surrender. Let Jesus take over. The more we remember how He has made a difference in our lives, then the more we're able to surrender. This is a beautiful question. Who am I? We've asked this question when we were younger, and we have found an answer to this. If we haven't found an answer to this, then we still keep on asking this. Can you imagine a 70-year-old person who hasn't answered this would still ask himself, who am I? Ganong edad, yun pa rin ang tanong, ano? Sino ba ako? We would only be able to answer this question fully in the context of God. Who am I? I am a child of God. Really now, the question of a servant is not so much who am I. The question of a servant is this: whose am I? Hindi lang sino ko. Sino ba ang nagmamay-ari sa akin? Kanino ba ako napapabilang? Whose am I? And if we take it from that song of Casting Crowns, which young people love so much, same title, Who Am I? And the answer to that question is found in the last line of that song. The answer is, I am yours, Lord. I am yours. And so we just have to extend our arms and raise our whole being to God and say, Lord, I surrender. St. Paul surrendered to Jesus, and see the kind of life he lived for him. A disciple whose life was changed on the road to Damascus.